Chapter 4 Abode of the Gods. What? Who attacked you? Cried a concerned Nandi as he rushed towards Shiva and examined his wounds. Relax, Nandi, replied Shiva. You are in worse shape than I am after your adventure in the water. It's just a few superficial cuts, nothing serious. The doctors have already dressed the wounds. I am alright. I'm sorry, my lord. It's entirely my fault. I should never have left you alone. It will never happen again. Please forgive me, my lord. Pushing Nandi gently back onto the bed, Shiva said, There's nothing to forgive, my friend. How can this be your fault? Please calm down. Getting excited will not do your health any good. Once Nandi had calmed down a bit, Shiva continued. In any case, I don't think they were trying to kill us. It was very strange. Us? Yes, there were two women involved. But who could these attackers be? Asked Nandi. Then a disturbing thought dawned on Nandi. Did the attackers wear a pendant with the crescent moon on it? Shiva frowned. No, but there was this one strange man, the best swordman among them. He was covered from head to toe in a hooded robe, his face hidden by a mask, the kind I have seen you people wear at the color festival. What is it called? Holy, my lord. Yes, the holy kind of mask. In any case, you could only see his eyes and his hands. His only distinguishing feature was a leather bracelet with a strange symbol on it. What symbol, my lord? Picking up a palm leaf booklet and the thin charcoal writing stick from the side table, Shiva drew the symbol. Nandi frowned. This is an ancient symbol that some people used for the word Om. But who would want to use this symbol now? Om? Asked Shiva. My lord, Om is the holiest word in our religion. It is considered the primeval sound of nature, the hymn of the universe. It was so holy that for many millennia most people would not insert it by putting it down in written form. Then how did this symbol come about? It was devised by Lord Bharat, a great ruler who had conquered practically all of India many thousands of years ago. A rare Chandravanshi who was worth respecting. He had even married a Suryavanshi princess with the aim of ending our perpetual war. Who are the Chandravanshis? Asked Shiva. Think of them as the very antithesis of us, my lord. They are the followers of the kings who are the descendants of the moon. And they follow the lunar calendar? Yes, my lord, they are a crooked, untrustworthy, and lazy people with no rule, moral, or honor. They are coward who never attack like principled Kshatriyas. Even their kings are corrupted and selfish. The Chandravanshi are a blot on humanity. But what does the Om symbol have to do with this? Well, King Bharat created this symbol of unity between the Suryavanshis and the Chandravanshis. The top half in white represents the Chandravanshis. The bottom half in red represents the Suryavanshis. The amalgam of these is the emergent common path represented in orange. The crescent moon to the right of the symbol was the pre-existing Suryavanshi symbol, and the sun above it was the pre-existing Suryavanshi symbol. In order to signify that this was a pact blessed by the gods, Lord Bharat mandated the representation of this symbol as the holy word Om. And then what happened? As expected, the pact died along with the good king. Once the influence of Lord Bharat was removed, the Chandravanshis were soon up to their old tricks and the war began once again. The symbol was forgotten and the word Om reverted to its original form of pure sound without a written representation. But the symbol on the bracelet of this hooded man was not colored. It was all black, and the parts of the symbol didn't look like lines to me. They looked like a drawing of three serpents. Naga, exclaimed a shocked Nandi before mumbling a soft prayer and touching his Rudra pendant for protection. Now, who the bloody hell are the Nagas? Asked Shiva. They are cursed people, my lord, gasped Nandi. They are born with hideous deformities because of the sins of their previous births. Deformities like extra hands or horribly mishaps faces, but they have tremendous strength and skills. The Naga name alone strikes terror in any citizen's heart. They are not even allowed to live in the Sapt Sindhu. The Sapt Sindhu? Our land, my lord, the land of the seven rivers, the land of the Indus, Saraswati, Yamuna, Ganga, Sarayu, Brahmaputra, and Narmada. This is where Lord Manu mandated that all of us Suryavanshis and Chandravanshis live. Shiva nodded as Nandi continued. The city of the Nagas exists to the south of the Narmada, beyond the border of our lands. In fact, it is bad luck to even speak of them, my lord. But why would a Naga attack me or any Meluha for that matter? Cursing under his breath, Nandi said, because of the Chandravanshis. What level have these two-faced people sunk to, using the demon Nagas in their attacks, in their hatred for us? They don't even realize how many sins they are inviting upon their own souls. Shiva frowned. During the attack, it hadn't appeared as if the Naga was being used by the small platoon of soldiers. In fact, it looked like the Naga was the leader. It took another week for them to reach Devagri. The capital city of the Meluhan stood on the west bank of the Saraswati, which emerged at the confluence of the Satluj and Yamuna rivers. Sadly, though, her majesty flow and mighty girth had now ebbed, but even in her reduced state, she was still massive and awe-inspiring. Unlike many of the tempestuous rivers of the Punjab, though, the Saraswati was achingly calm. The river seemed to sense that her days were drawing to an end, yet she did not fight aggressively to thirst her way through and survive. Instead, the unselfishly gave her all to those who came to seek her treasures. The soaring Devagri, though, was in complete contrast to the mellow Saraswati. Like all Meluhan cities, Devagri too was built on giant platforms, an effective protection against floods as well as enemies. However, Devagri differed from other Meluhan cities in its sheer size. The city sprawled atop three giant platforms, each of them spreading over 350 hectares, significantly larger than the other cities. The platforms were nearly 8 meters high and were bastioned by giant blocks of cut stone interspaced with baked bricks. Two of the platforms, named Tamra and Rajat, literally bronze and silver, were for the common man, whereas the platform named Swarna or gold was the royal citadel. The platforms were connected to each other by tall bridges made of stones and baked bricks, which rose above the flood plains below. Along the periphery of each enormous platform were towering city walls with giant spikes facing outwards. There were truests at regular intervals along the city walls from where approaching enemies could be repelled. This spectacle was beyond anything that Shiva had ever seen. In his mind, the construction of a city like this must truly be man's greatest achievement. Shiva's entourage rode up towards the drawbridge across the field of spikes to the Tamra platform. The drawbridge had been reinforced with the metal bars at the bottom and had roughened baked bricks laid out on top so that horses and chariots would not slip. There was something about the bricks he had seen across the empire that had intrigued Shiva. Turning to Nandi, he asked, Are these bricks made by some standard process? Yes, my lord. Reply a surprised Nandi. All the bricks in Meluha are made in accordance with specifications and guidelines given by the chief architect of the empire. But how did you guess? They are all of exactly the same dimension. Nandi beamed with pride at both his empire's efficiency as well as his lord's power of observation. The platform rose at the end of the drawbridge, with a road spiraling up to the summit in one gentle turn, facilitating the passage of horses and chariots. In addition, there was a broad flight of stairs leading straight up the incline for pedestrian. The city walls and the platform extended steeply onto the sides around this slope, making it a valley of death for any enemy foolish enough to attack the platform from this direction. The city gates were made of a metal that Shiva had never seen before. Nandi clarified that they were made of iron, a new metal that had just been discovered. It was the strongest of all the metals but very expensive. The ore required to make it was not easily available. At the platform entry on top of the city gates was etched the symbol of the Suryavanshis, a bright red circular sun with its rays blazing out in all directions. Below it was the motto that they lived by: Satya Dharma Man, truth, duty, honor. Even this initial introduction to the city had left Shiva awestruck. However, what he witnessed at the top of the platform within the city gates was truly breathtaking, both in its efficiency and simplicity. The city was divided into a grid of square blocks by the paved streets. There were footpaths on the side for pedestrians, lanes marked on the street for traffic in different directions, and of course, there were covered drains running through the center. All the buildings were constructed as standard two-storied block structures made of baked bricks. On top were wooden extensions for increasing the height of the building if required. Nandi clarified to Shiva that the layout of the buildings different internally depending on their individual requirements. All windows and doors were built into the side walls of buildings, never facing the main road. The blank walls that faced the main roads bore striking black etchings depicting the different legends of the Suryavanshis, while the walls themselves were painted in the sober colors of grey, light blue, light green, or white. The most common background color, though, appeared to be blue. The holiest color for the Meluhan was blue, denoting the sky. Green, representing nature, happened to be placed just after blue in the color spectrum. Meluhan liked to divine a grand design in every natural phenomenon and thought it wondrous that blue was placed just before green in the color spectrum, just as the sky happened to be above the earth. The most recurring allusions on the wall were about the great emperor, Lord Ram, his victories over his enemies, his subjugation of the wicked Chandravanshis. Incidents depicting his statesmanship and wisdom had all been lovely recreated. Lord Ram was deeply revered and many Meluhan worshipped him like a god. They referred to him as Vishnu, an ancient title for the greatest of the gods, meaning protector of the world and propagator of good. As Shiva learned from Nandi, the city was divided into many districts consisting of 4 to 8 blocks. Each district had its own markets, commercial and residential areas, temples, and entertainment centers. Manufacturing or any other polluting activity was conducted in separate quarters away from the districts. The efficiency and smoothness with which Devagiri functioned belied the fact that it was the most populous city in the entire empire. The census conducted 2 years back had pegged the population of the city at 200,000. Nandi led Shiva and the three soldiers to one of the city's numerous guest houses built for the many tourists that frequented Devagiri for both business and leisure. Having duly handed over their exhausted horses to the care of the stable boy, they strode in to register themselves. Shiva took in the guest house with a familiar eye, similar to so many he had seen throughout their journey. There was a central courtyard with the building built around it. The rooms were comfortably furnished and spacious. My lord, it's almost dinner time, said Nandi. I will speak with the housekeeper and get some food organized. We should eat early and get enough sleep since our appointment with the emperor has been fixed at the beginning of the second Prahar tomorrow. Sounds like a good idea. Also, if it is all right with you, shall I dismiss the soldiers and send them back to Srinagar? That also sounds like a good idea, said a smiling Shiva. Why, Nandi? You are almost like a fount of brilliant ideas. Nandi laughed along with Shiva, always happy to be the harbinger of a smile on his lord's face. I will just be back, my lord. Shiva lay down on his bed and was quickly lost in the thoughts that really mattered to him. I will finish the meeting with the emperor as soon as it is humanly possible. Give him whatever the bloody hell he wants and then scour the city for Sati. Shiva had considered asking Nandi about the whereabouts of Sati but had eventually decided against it. He was painfully aware that he had made a less than spectacular impression on her at their first meeting. If she hadn't made it easy for him to find her, it only meant that she wasn't terribly stirred by him. He didn't want to compound his mistake by speaking casually about her with others. He smiled as the memory of her face came flooding back to him. He replayed the magical moments when he had seen her fighting. Not the most romantic of sights for most men of his tribe, but for Shiva it was divine. He sighed, recalling her soft, delicate body, which had suddenly developed brutal, killer qualities upon being attacked. The curves that had so captivated him swung smoothly as she transferred her weight to swing her sword. The soberly tied hair had swayed sensuously with each movement of the sword arm. He breathed deeply. What a woman! Early next morning, Shiva and Nandi crossed the bridge between the Tamra and Swarna platforms to reach the royal citadel. The bridge, another marvel of Meluhan engineering, was flanked on the sides by a thick wall. Holes punched into the wall enabled defenders to shoot arrows or pour hot oil on enemies. The bridge was bisected by a massive gate, a final protection in the likelihood of the other platform being lost to an enemy. Shiva was completely taken by surprise when they crossed over to the Swarna platform, not by the grandeur of the royal area but by the lack of it. He was shocked that there was no opulence. Despite ruling over such a massive and wealthy empire, the nobility lived in a conspicuously simple manner. The structure of the royal citadel was almost exactly like the other platforms. There were no special concessions made for the aristocrats. The same block structures that dominated all of Meluha were to be found in the royal citadel as well. The only magnificent structure was to the far right and sported the sign Great Public Bath. The bath also had a glorious temple to Lord Indra built on the left hand side. The temple was built of wooden and it stood on a raised foundation of baked bricks. Its cupola plated with solid gold. It seemed that special architecture was reserved only for structures built for the gods or ones that were for the common good, probably just like how Lord Ram would have wanted. The only concession to the emperor, however, was that his standard block structure was larger than the others, significantly larger. Shiva and Nandi entered the royal private office to find Emperor Daksha sitting on a simple throne at the far end of the modestly furnished room flanked by a man and a woman. Daksha greeted Shiva with the formal namaste and said, I hope your journey was comfortable. He looked too young to be an emperor of such a large country. Though he was marginally shorter than Shiva, they differed in their musculature, while the strapping Shiva was powerfully built. Daksha's body indicated that it had not been strained by too much exercise. It wasn't that he was obese either, just average. The same could be said about his wheat complexioned face. Average sized dark eyes flanked a straight nose. He wore his hair long like most Meluha men and women. The head bore a majestic crown with the sun symbol of the Suryavanshis manifested in the center through sparkling gemstones. His clothes consisted of an elegantly draped dhoti and an angavastram placed over his right shoulder. A large amount of functional jewelry, including two amulets on his right arm, complemented Daksha's average appearance. His only distinguishing feature was his smile, which spread into innocence, conviction all the way to his eyes. Emperor Daksha looked like a man who wore his royalty lightly. Yes, it was, Your Highness, replied Shiva. The infrastructure in your empire is wonderful. You are an extraordinary emperor. Thank you, but I only deserve reflected credit. The work is done by my people. You are too modest, Your Highness. Smiling politely, Daksha asked, May I introduce my most important aides? Without waiting for an answer, he pointed to the women on his left. This is my Prime Minister, Kanakala. She takes care of the administrative, revenue, and protocol matters. Kanakala did a formal namaste to Shiva. Her head was shaved except for a tuft of smooth hair at the back which had been tied into a knot. She had a string called the janeu tied across from her left shoulder down to the right side of her torso. Though young looking like most Meluhans, the flab on her torso between the white blouse and dhoti didn't escape Shiva's keen eye. She had a dark and incredibly smooth complexion and, like all her countrymen, wore jewelry that was restrained and conservative. Shiva noticed that the second amulet on Kanakala's arm showed a pigeon, not a very high chosen tribe amongst the Brahmins. Shiva bent low and did a formal namaste in reply. Pointing to his right, Daksha said, And this is my chief of the armed forces, General Parvateshwar. He looked after the army, navy, special forces, police, etc. Parvateshwar looked like a man that Shiva would think twice about taking on in a battle. He was taller than Shiva and had an immensely muscular physique that dominated the space around him. His curly long hair had been combed back severally and fell from under his crown in a disciplined array. His smooth, swarthy skin was marked by the proud signs of long years in battle. His body was hairless, in a rare departure from the normally hirsute Kshatriya man who considered body hair a sign of machismo. As if to make up for this deficiency, Parvateshwar maintained a thick and long mustache which curled upwards at the edge. His eyes reflected his uncompromisingly strong and righteous character. The second amulet on his arm showed Parvateshwar as a tiger, a very high chosen tribe amongst the Kshatriyas. He nodded curtly at Shiva. No namaste. No elaborate bow of his proud head. Shiva, however, smiled warmly and greeted Parvateshwar with a formal namaste. Please wait outside, Captain, advised Parvateshwar, looking at Nandi. Before Nandi could respond, however, Shiva cut in. My apologies, but is it alright if Nandi stays here with me? He has been my constant companion since I left my homeland and has become a dear and trusted friend. Of course he may, replied Daksha. Your Highness, it is not appropriate for a captain to be witness to this discussion, said Parvateshwar. In any case, his service rules clearly state that he can only escort a guest into the emperor's presence and not stay there while a matter of state is discussed. Oh, relax, Parvateshwar. You take your service rules too seriously sometimes. Turning to Shiva, Daksha continued, If it is alright with you, may we see your neck now? Nandi slid behind Shiva to untie the cravat, seeing the beads donned on the cravat to convey the impression that the throat was covered for religious reasons. Daksha smiled and whispered, Good idea. Even as the cravat came off, both Daksha and Kankala moved in close to inspect Shiva's throat. Parvateshwar did not step forward but strained his neck slightly in order to get a better look. Daksha and Kankala were clearly stunned by what they saw. Daksha reached out and lightly touched Shiva's throat in awe. The colors emerges from within. There is no dye. It is real. Daksha and Kankala glanced at each other, tears glistening in their astounded eyes. Kankala folded her hands into a namaste and began mumbling a chant under her breath. Daksha looked up at Shiva's face, trying desperately to suppress the ecstasy that coursed through his insides. With a controlled smile, the Emperor of Meluha said, I hope we have not done anything to cause you any discomfort since your arrival in Meluha. Despite Daksha's controlled reaction, Shiva could see that both the emperor as well as his prime minister were taken aback by his blue throat. Just how important is this bloody blue throat for the Meluhans? None at all, Your Highness, replied Shiva as he tied the cravat back around his neck. In fact, my tribe and I have been delighted by the hospitality that we have received here. I'm happy about that, smiled Daksha, bowing his head politely. You may want to rest a bit and we could talk in greater detail tomorrow. Would you like to shift your residence to the royal citadel? It is rumored that the quarters here are a little more comfortable. That is a very kind of her, Your Highness. Daksha turned to Nandi and asked, Captain, what did you say your name was? My name is Nandi, Your Highness. You too are welcome to stay here. Make sure that you take good care of our honored guest. Kankala, please make all the arrangements. Yes, Your Highness. Kankala gestured towards one of her aides who escorted Shiva and Nandi out of the royal office. As Shiva exited the room, Daksha went down on his haunches with great ceremony and touched his head to the ground on which Shiva had just stood. He mumbled a soft prayer and then stood up to look at Kankala with tears in his eyes. Kankala's eyes, however, betrayed impatience and a touch of anger. I don't understand, Your Highness, glared Kankala. The blue mark was genuine. Why did you not tell him? What did you expect me to do? cried a surprised Daksha. This is his second day in Devagiri. You want me to just accost him and tell him that he is the Nilkant or savior, that he is destined to solve all our problems? Well, if he has a blue throat, then he is the Nilkant, isn't he? And if he is the Nilkant, then he is our savior. He has to accept his destiny. An exasperated Parvateshwar interjected, I can't believe that we are talking like this. We are Meluhan. We are the Suryavanshis. We have created the greatest civilization ever known to man. Are we to believe that an unskilled, uneducated barbarian is to be our savior just because he has a blue throat? That is what the legend says, Parvateshwar, countered Kanakala. Daksha interrupted both his ministers. Parvateshwar, I believe in the legend. My people believe in the legend. The Nilkant has chosen my reign to make his appearance. He will transform all of India in line with the ideal of Meluha, a land of truth, duty, and honor. His leadership can help us end the Chandravanshi crisis once and for all. All the agonies they now inflict upon us will be over. From the terrorist attacks to the shortage of Somaras to the killing of the Saraswati. Then why delay telling him, Your Highness? Asked Kanakala. The more days we waste, the weaker becomes the resolve of our people. You are aware of the terrorist attack just a few days back in a village not far from Hariupa. As our response becomes weak, our enemies become bolder. Your Highness, we must inform the Lord quickly and announce his arrival to our people. It will give us the strength to fight our cruel enemies. I will tell him, but I am trying to be more farsighted than you. So far, our empire has only faced the morale sapping influence of fraudulent Nilkants. Imagine the consequences if people were to discover that the true Nilkant has arrived but refuses to stand by us. First, we must be sure that he is willing to accept his destiny. Only then will we announce his arrival to our people. And I think that the best way to convince him is to share the whole truth with him. Once he sees the unfairness of the attacks we face, he will fight with us to destroy evil. If that takes time, so be it. We have waited for centuries for the Nilkant. A few more weeks will not destroy us.